Hi, Neil Odell in Norwich. Just a little over 8 years ago, I started on the negotiations committee. Had the pleasure, I guess, or the misfortune of doing negotiations on both sides of the river in both Vermont and New Hampshire. And I will say, and I know that most of you in this room know this already, when you sit down and you proceed with that local negotiation with your teacher sitting across the table, those are not the people that you're talking to when you're having that conversation. As Lucas already pointed out, a big piece of this is recognizing the imbalance that is in place right now, that we are actually not having a negotiation with the people that are across the table, but the Vermont NEA sees this as a state level issue. And if we continue to focus on this at a local level, we are going to miss out on the opportunities that we have available to us. We need to look at this at the same level that they do.
Paul Susan Huntington. I actually don't have a vote. My colleague here, Kevin, does. It's a comment. We're this October, 2 years from now, same day, and the state was trying to negotiate a health care agreement. That means that it would not be a single district in the state of Vermont without a contract. We're trying to negotiate the rest of the contract, but the state level process has not gone well. And I would expect it would not go well. It'll go to some sort of other third party or whatever. It wouldn't be negotiated easily. So it's a question, but a major concern that I have. Would this not necessarily hold up every single district in terms of negotiating the rest of the contract?
That's an excellent question, and any legislation would have to have language in there that would prevent that from happening. How would it be a commission that Nicole was schooled on this than I would ever be. That's why we hired her. Nicole?
Just as your representative on the commission, that is the kind of issue that's going to be dealt with. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of meetings, so there's been an extension has been requested because, as you all can imagine, this is a really complicated issue. But timing has been a concern that's been raised and will need to be addressed. And if it's that's a big issue.
Okay, well, one or two more questions, and we really need to move on. Or comments, excuse me.
My comment is in support of Dave Clark here, that it's very clear this is moving us towards a statewide union, statewide contracts, and statewide strikes. Actually, I thought at first that's a bad thing, and I'm not so sure anymore because I think it's becoming more apparent that the teachers really need to get their stuff together and get a lot stronger and a lot more organized than they are.
Okay, I see no more hands, so we'll move forward with a vote on subsection number 1 only. Please vote.
Great, so you're just doing the first one.
Oh, yeah.
This is a wrong ceremony.
That was an awkward. Did you see what I did in Washington, California?
Well, I can't.
I don't want to, don't come with.
It's what.
Funny.
I'm sorry? From up in Burlington? I'm not related to that. I have a cousin named Mike. Yep. There's a lot of us around, a lot of cadets around. They're everywhere. Most of my related. I did find out related. Like basketball or,
Okay, I have 29 votes cast. Anyone that does not cast their ballot?
Okay, I'm very serious. Raise your hand if you're still done. Speak down or forever. No one.
Okay, the vote has been cast. We had two new ballots come in, so we went from 29 to 31 in the ballot, and it is, what was it? 21 to 10, which is 68%. So subsection 1 of proposal 2 is passed. Now move on to subsection 2.
So this one sets up a task force. It does not have, at the end of this thing, nor is there any real carrots except for financial savings. But boards struggle, we hear that boards struggle with how to reduce staff. And in some cases, it's very difficult for them to figure out where to do it. Suggesting the creation of a task force that will set up target staff ratios and work with the agency and getting guidance on how to reduce staffing. Currently, a few years ago, Rebecca Holcomb went around the state and told us we had the highest number of staff per student. And this is all staff, custodians, whatever you have in your building. And it was 4.7 to 1. We've actually moved in the opposite direction. If we went to 5 to 1, there was tens of millions. Forget 75 million we could save. We've actually moved to about 4.2 to 1. We're the lowest in the nation. No one touches us in this statistic. Again, there's no stick on this. There's just let's work. Let's get up some kind of task force. Let's study this. Let's figure out how we can empower boards to be able to deal with these kind of issues.
Thank you, Gio. I'll now open up the floor for public discussion. No.
Canford Mill River. I've been instructed by my board representing them to vote against this. While we don't object to being at the table, having a conversation and investigating this, the board's position is we should be at the table vehemently opposing any sort of, establishing any sort of fixed ratios that should be done on a school by school basis. Now I concept here personally, but again, I've been instructed by my board to vote no, and I guess unless number 3 is amended, I'll be voting against that one as well. On a personal note, I would say I've long felt, I understand the cost containment, I understand we're the lowest in the nation, and sometimes I wish somebody would just say, yes, we're the lowest in the nation.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, but I have to vote against this. Sorry, guys.
Rama Schneider, still from Williamstown. And so I have a few items here, and the first 3 will be very familiar. I'll go over them briefly. VSBA mission talks about a strong collective voice. So far, with a majority of 30 some odd, maybe 30 people or so voting, does not seem like a very strong collective voice for Vermont school boards. Once again, if I'm on a 5-member board and the vote is passing 3-2, that does not represent a collective voice to me at all. There is no need for the VSBA to take this stand. It's not going to change anything, particularly since the state is already working on this issue. There are, and I won't try to enumerate them because they don't speak directly to the proposal, but there are other board-related business issues that are more important and directly affect day-to-day operations of school boards that the VSBA should be focusing on, but unfortunately they're not. And the last thing I'll say is about the presumed savings. I just recently went through a merger study, and I'm not the only one here that has gone through these merger study committees and gone through a merger. And the one thing that I learned very quickly is that the numbers put out there very often are illusionary. They don't necessarily reflect the reality of what's going to happen. We don't know if we reduce the number of staff in the state, which I'm not against, but if we do that, we don't know that on the flip side of that, we're not going to have to be paying the people that stick around more to stick around. So we don't know what the end result of this is financially. I think that should be dropped out of the discussion, and I hope folks will vote against this.
Mark Malone from South Burlington. I think there's a very good chance this next session that we're going to see a push from the governor and other folks in the State House to have delineated ratios and potentially penalties if we don't meet ratios. And I think that we need to arm the VSBA with an alternative, which is a plan to get information and assistance to the various school boards to be able to deal with this individually. I mean, I feel that we need some information in South Burlington to be doing our due diligence and asking the right questions of our administration related to the ratios. And I feel that this is going to get us the information we need and also keep from having a worse result in the State House. Thanks.
Let's could you move faster?
Laura Lee Benham, Luca Courier Memorial, the Conington Green District. So our district is in following up on what you just said. We're in support of this resolution. We have a few concerns or caveats, and that would be that make sure that we're the ones guiding the conversation and getting ahead of the legislators creating artificial ratios that are based on measures that are not really fit for the classes in the school. Because there's so many, there's staff student, there's teacher student, equalized pupil, ADM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then past experiences that they like to create penalties. And if we're the ones going out with the task force, we have ways of recommending it and creating structures that are actually going to work.
So I can assure you, like many of these things, the VSBA, if we didn't have a voice on this task force, we would not be in favor of this legislation. We would have to have something like that. There'd have to be some kind of board presence. We would not favor this without it.
Lori Childers, Addison, Northwest School District. I just have a comment, and that is that it is so frustrating that the legislation or the legislators insist on personalized learning. Personalized learning, and then insist that we cut our staff. Ticks me off. Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, I'll get ready to vote on section 2, please. Please cast your ballot.
Gia wants me to move faster, so you need to clear an aisle.
Zip line.
I have to tell you, my writing comprehensive and my graduation. He went to school and loved it. Dad was or I think he did ID and he was really like, first I heard it, like, and they got it in the chat. So, I was like,